Scott! I declare bankruptcy!
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Depression? Isn't that just a fancy word for feeling bummed out?
Dwight, you ignorant slut!
Not only the years we've been at war, but from the moment, as a child, when we realized that the world could be conquered.
Welcome to Great Scott, the Office Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ray, and with me is my desk mate, Jacob.
How's it going, everybody?
We are members of the Broken Jars Broadcasting Network. Visit brokenjars.xyz for all of our other shows.
Yep,
How you doing, dude?
Just another Sunday night in Western PA.
You getting Pokemon Go action going?
No, it's not my jam. My wife loves it, but that's not really my style.
I was at. Do you know where Nobles is in
No.
Pennsylvania? I mean, Pennsylvania's is huge, so it's like this weird little amusement park I went to yesterday. It's free to go in, free to park, but you go in and it kind of operates like a state fair, where you pay per ride.
Okay.
But they have some type of weird, cheesy, like Disney dollar type thing. And each ride's like $3, so you give them $3 worth of these Disney dollars, but Nobles tickets. And yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, aside from it being like in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, it was pretty good time.
Yeah, I don't know jack about the eastern side of the state.
That's fair. That makes sense.
I've been over on that side of the state like once since I moved here. And that was for work, so I really didn't have much time to explore.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, life's good. Ready to get started talking about the office and all the other cool shit that's just going on with the podcasts and stuff. So, we have a sponsor of sorts now. I don't know if you're familiar with the game publisher Tiny Build.
Yeah, did they make that game not enough time or too much?
Yeah, not enough time to explain.
Yeah.
They make that. They produce Punch Club and Speedrunners and a bunch of other different ones. Party Hard.
Speedrunners, I love Speedrunners.
Yeah, so they're every week they're going to be giving us codes to give away. So for all the listeners out there, if you also like video games, just be listening to our podcast and you'll be getting free video games in the future. So that's cool.
Win-win. You get a free game and you get to listen to one of the most amazing podcasts about The Office ever.
Right. And for the listeners who want to be involved with the show a bit more, everyone hears the opening, sort of that supercut of, Office quotes. So for the listeners out there who are feeling industrious, down the show notes and comments and stuff on the YouTubes, I'll be uploading a link so you can download our background music, which is a EDM version of the Office intro. And if you want, you can make your own supercut and we'll play it instead of what we've been using so far. So if you want to get involved that way, sort of be a little creative, get involved with the show, that's your way to do it.
Yeah, we'll give you a quick little shout out, mention your Twitter handle or whatever. If you got a project, you can tell us to describe in like two sentences. Maybe that's it. I don't want to waste time. You guys, you love our show. I don't want to talk about your shit, fans.
But yeah, so that's the thing for the fans if they want to get involved that way. We'll also be putting up the schedule for the podcast, which episodes we'll be doing which week. So if you want to make a specific podcast episode's specific intro, that would be amazing, and you'll definitely go to the front of the line if you actually make one that's like for the episodes we're doing, because that'd be cool.
And it'd be a good opportunity because at the end of this episode we'll be reading some listener mail. So if you guys have comments or whatever about episodes upcoming that you think are interesting for us to bring up at the time, send them our way at brokenjarsbroadcasting@gmail.com.
Yep. So we're getting into season 2, which is widely considered the best Office season ever. And we'll start off with the first episode of the season, the Dundies.
The Dundies are like a really iconic thing for The Office, right? Because the show obviously has like a lot of things that are like really special to it, but like the Dundies is the thing that The Office does. Other real world places have employees of the month and little awards of recognition, but this is like their own version of like the Grammys or the Oscars or whatever. And we talk about it a little bit in season 1, and through all the intros we see Michael play with a little statue that's actually a Dundie. So they present it to us in full force in all of its glory, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, this episode was written by Mindy Kaling, who is Kelly Kapoor. She writes a lot of episodes. She writes at least one episode a season for the entire run of the show. And it's directed by Greg Daniels, who also does The Client and Valentine's Day. He does the basketball episode. He does a lot of office directing and writing, which is kind of funny because this one takes place at a Chili's, and his next episode he directs, The Client, also takes place at Chili's.
Yeah, and what do you call it? It's nice. This is where they start to like take some of the storylines outside of the office space. Mm-hmm. Like we're talking about 4 episodes today, and the Dundies and Office Olympics both take place outside of the office. Like at least half of them do.
Right.
Which kind of it changes it up a little bit, because then you have to see the characters interact with people who aren't just familiar with them, you know? So then like you can see how weird Michael is compared to like the rest of the actual world that they live in, which is like a nice little reality check that just because everybody in the office is used to Michael doesn't mean that everybody else outside is.
Right. Yeah, this is a great episode, very iconic. You can tell they got a lot more money coming into the second season than from the first season, because I don't know if Steve Carell got like plugs or what, but he's got a full head of hair now. I don't know if that was they cut his hair to make it look all thin and stuff, and they let him kind of grow it out. But that's always weirded me out because he looks so different from season 1 going into season 2.
Yeah, because he also stops like slicking it back. Part of me wondered like if he was trying to do like this like greasy thing in the first season, but you're right, the volume of hair is different, so something must have been done either or. Yeah. So, I mean, what's your favorite award in the Dundies?
Well, the best acceptance speech I think is Pam.
Yeah.
But the don't go in there after award is funny because if you look at Kevin's Dundee, it's actually squatting.
Right, yeah.
It's just like, oh wow, he just really went for that one.
I like oh my god. I like Angela's the tight ass award. Like
everyone's favorite stickler, and she's got a great caboose.
That is an instance where I think Michael would at the very least get written up for, if not fired.
That's hard to say because I was thinking about it because I wasn't sure, but since it's not at the office and it's technically not a work event, since
that's true.
The work isn't paying for it, maybe not. And this is also where you kind of start to see the Michael's love of parties. He talks about the 0505 party, the tsunami fundraiser, not fundraiser, fundraiser.
Yeah. And then also, it's probably Michael at one of his earliest times to shine with his actual like performances, because like he does little jokes around the office or whatever, and he likes to treat his meeting space as like a bit of a show.
Right.
But here, like he does like the full 9. He's got costume changes. He's got a DJ. He has cue cards. It kind of dives into Michael's kind of crazy perception of himself and his role.
This is when
you
start to see the like all the impressions, and you get to meet Ping, and you start to understand that like Michael doesn't do anything original. He steals everything.
Yeah. Like even stuff like right at the top, he starts singing that song. OP is it? No, what the heck is it? I forget what the hell the song is now. Anyways, but he doesn't have a version of it without the original lyrics.
Right.
So he's trying to sing his own. Like the whole thing is just like a mess, but he doesn't know because he kind of like sees everything through like rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. Then you have his his Tiny Dancer
Yeah.
rip off. And of all the ones he rips off, probably the best one for the entire show, like the entire run of The Office, was during Goodbye Toby.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was a Genesis song or something he ripped off. And
Yeah. Yeah, they sing that "Goodbye Stranger" song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Paul Liverstein does like a great job, especially by that point with like those Toby faces.
Yeah.
Like everybody gets away, they get to look at the camera, and Toby's is always like this like sad puppy face. And that song is full of those instances where Toby just looks miserable.
Yeah, one thing I did really like about this, you start to see it, it's more of a nod to Jenna Fisher than everything else, but like so much of Pam's expression is like right here. Like it's all in her eyes. I don't like she just you can just tell exactly what's going on in her head just like by the way her eyes look. And I think it's a really a nod to Jenna Fisher about just how good of an actress she is, at least for this role.
Yeah, I mean, even in The Fire, which we'll cover, and then, I mean, it happens a bunch, but the Fire comes to mind, and then even the end of season 3, like,
yeah.
that scene. But yeah, you're right. It's all her eyes. She just has a way of like portraying like that, like overly giddiness or like sadness or the drunkenness or whatever it is. Yeah, she does a good job there.
All of the above for Pam.
Yeah. So how familiar are you with the Scranton area specifically?
Not very.
Not really, because it's more East Coasterly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm wondering too, like how essential the Chili's is to the folks at Scranton. Like, is that their only chain restaurant that in that way? Because it's a funny bit to like always go to Chili's. Like Chili's is like the fancy place.
Right, but he mentions Chili's in the first season, and so my question is, I can almost guarantee you some kind of sponsorship going on. That's why they have all this stuff at Chili's. But because he mentions Chili's, when he fires the guy in the Halloween episode, which is coming up. Yeah, it'll be the first episode next time. He gives him Chili's.
Oh yeah.
Coupons and and the client, he talks about how like
well, he sings the Baby Back Ribs song, right?
You're right. Well, Chili's is the new golf course.
Yeah. A fun fact here about Chili's is that originally in the script, Pam was supposed to be overserved alcohol, but obviously Chili's doesn't want to like be portrayed as a company that does that, so they had to fix it so that she's stealing drinks off of people's tables. But that allows her a fun little opportunity to like get reactions from people, like Stanley's wife, who like never says anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so that reminds me. Like, so we meet Stanley's wife for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And by the end of the show, he's got like 2 other, if not more, girlfriends plus his wife, who he's still married to. So I'm like, has he already started cheating on her, or is this just something that's?
That's a good point. Like, is it like his thing? I wonder if he's got a type too, because like aside from, like he didn't hit on Amy Adams in Hot Girl, for example.
Right.
And of course, we always talk about retcons on the show. So is that like maybe they didn't know that he was going to be
right? Because it kind of changes because you never really hear about because his daughter shows up.
Bring Your Daughter to Work Day.
Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. I don't remember which. It's this. It's episode 18 this season, and after that, you just never hear from him again.
Right.
It's like those people you never ever hear about ever again. You're just like married his second child. You hear about it, never see him or her.
I swear that she comes back again. Or is that the same episode where Ryan like wins her something at like the arcade? I forget. They go to a bar or something where there's an arcade and she's there, or she follows him there. Maybe it's the same episode. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt. I forget.
Yeah, I cannot remember her in any other episodes.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It'll come up. Yeah.
And what's funny is they also retcon who Devin is. So because they mentioned Devin in the Dundies, but the person who plays him in the Halloween episode, different person, completely different person.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it did not look like anyone I'd ever seen.
Let's see. I mean, because also too, he had that costume on though.
That's true. Maybe it was just the costume throwing me off.
Because also the actor in this episode his name is Devin Abner, and they have that kind of history of actually making the characters named after the actors who portray them. It says here, no, that doesn't help at all. But yeah, oh, here we go. Devin Abner plays Devin in The Office. That's all it says. That's a list of accolades for sure.
It's more than we got.
That's true.
So, I think what's nice about this episode is you really start seeing people, like them growing as individuals. I think part of that's because they're away from the office, so you get to see them a little bit. But Dwight is ultra protective of Michael, and because somebody wrote something on the girls' bathroom. It ends up being Pam. We never find out what it is. It's sort of one of their traditions of telling you something happened, but never ever showing it to you.
Like the carpet.
Or the teapot letter that Jim gives or eventually gives to Pam. But you never know what's in it. So it's sort of like the anti-Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, yeah. And it has this. So this episode ends with a nice little Jim and Pam moment, where throughout the episode, Pam's kind of all over Jim in a way that she wouldn't be if she were sober.
Right.
And then, if I recall, so Roy splits in the middle too. Roy
actually, right at the beginning of the Dundies, he's gone.
Right at the beginning, yeah. And Daryl, they both leave. So, side fact, I remember from the director's commentary on that episode was that all that argument was ad-libbed because they weren't going to use the audio from it.
Oh, really?
And then they kept it in because I guess Jenna Fisher was so compelling yelling at him. She's just like, well, if you had asked, then you would have known, or whatever it was.
Right. Well, it did feel very real. Like that interchange, I've had that exchange before.
Yeah. But then so there's this moment where they're in the parking lot and Jim knows, and he's kind of been taking care of Pam at this point. And there's a lot of those instances, especially in this season, where there's moments where you feel like one of them would say something, Right. Obviously leading up to Casino Night where Jim finally does say something. But and then of course Angela has to ruin it by honking her stupid car horn. Depriving the people of what we want,
And this is the first Jim Pam kiss, because she kisses him after she wins her Whitest Kids award.
Yeah.
And her acceptance speech is great. I feel God in this Chili's tonight.
And then just the pause. Everybody's like, yeah, it's great.
Because you can kind of tell, especially, I don't know, you've been to Chili's, right?
Yeah.
Have you drank much of Chili's?
Probably not. No.
Oh man, because you can see she had two of the big margaritas.
Right.
She stole half or 3/4 of Stanley's wife's margarita, and then had at least one of Jim's beers. That's a lot of booze.
Yeah, no, it is, and she's a tiny lady.
So she played that. She played the drunk pretty well, and you could tell Jim is just loving it. He's loving the entire time. It's like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, that bit where she has her Dundie and she goes right up to the camera and she goes, "Wow!" and she falls back. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I believe I forget where I read this, but I also believe this wasn't supposed to be the first episode of the season. Yeah, production code 2003.
Yep.
But it's a good comeback from that season, from season 1. I
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it introduces new elements that and it changes things up. It's a pretty high energy episode too. And it's not really a split episode. Like next episode you have, not next episode, but the fire, you have Michael and Dwight doing their own thing, and it's sort of going back and forth. Where this one is pretty much, I mean, they're at the Chili's for 2/3 of the episode, pretty much.
Yeah, so there's no like B storyline here.
Right,
Like
it's all
it's like the Dundies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
the only like real B storyline was him not having the like Jan saying no, we're not paying for this.
Yeah. Yeah, and the bathroom thing, I guess too.
Right.
And even here too. So it's like speaking about some of these other characters, Kelly is still not quite Kelly Kapoor yet.
Right. She's still dressed in more traditional.
Yeah.
hmm
And she got that sweet award, spicy curry. She's like, "What's this for?"
Like, just take it.
Yeah, just sit down. Yeah, because at that point, Michael's had some a rough evening.
One day I was like, how terrible would this be if you're at the Chili's and having to listen to this stuff?
Well, then they have that funny zoom in when he's doing ping, and then there's that Asian family behind him. It's so bad.
And you can tell, like, this is also brings up Michael's just tone deafness. Like, he doesn't care.
No,
He's going to do it no matter what.
because
Like,
he just thinks like it's comedy, like everybody gets it. It's just funny,
yeah, it's
but
just funny.
it's not.
Like my note for ping, it just says ping with a sad smiley face. That's all I could put on there. I'm like, oh yeah, ping's an asshole.
This
Go ahead.
this might be the first episode. Sorry, that Michael also expresses his like weird man crush on Ryan,
Uh,
because I don't recall it specifically in season 1.
right, but yeah, they really cranked that up to 11 in this season.
Yeah. Because then there's a bunch of times where Ryan and Michael are like kind of forced in close proximity, and Ryan being a temp, like what's he supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah, so he kind of like takes it mostly. Yeah.
My wife was saying that she really likes the episode, but it's hard because it's just Michael is so offensive and it's so in your face.
Right.
I think now, like we've been through the show a few times, so we're kind of used to it. But like, if you were to like watch that one fresh, that's pretty cringeworthy. And that was like The Office really brought in sort of like cringe humor, like awkward humor. Back in the 2003, 2004, whenever. Let's see, when was this? This aired 2005, September 20th, 2005. So.
Because I think I had said in the first episode we did that, a lot of the first season is so reminiscent of the UK Office, and then at some point it kind of branches off and does a little bit more American-style humor. But that, like, awkwardness that you're talking about, like, they really did a good job maintaining it. Because, like, off the top of my head, and again, speaking to, like, Michael not being a great guy, Date Mike, it comes to mind. Yeah, and it's just, like, that whole, like, bit, because that lady's so nice, and Jim and Pam are having a good time, and then Michael just, like, for no reason, except for he's an idiot, like, turns, and it's so hard to watch.
Oh, yeah. There are certain episodes that are just very hard to watch, like Dinner Party, that comes to mind.
Yeah.
That's a hard one to watch.
Scott's Tots is tough for me.
Oh.
Yeah, I've definitely skipped that one
brutal.
sometimes. Yeah, that one's a rough one.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
And this is also like, you also see Michael's ability to spin his own form of reality. It was obvious that the Dundies were terrible.
Right.
But he's like, man, I did a good job. I killed almost, because Pam,
I know.
and you could just tell he's just like, and you see this again in the speech episode where he leaves Dwight's thing, then goes and gets his scotch, and he's like, 1,000 guys.
Yeah. And I'll talk about it more when we get there too. But yeah, for me, that's a real low point for Michael.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because like Dwight really needed Michael's support there. And the way like Michael's able to warp reality at the end of that episode and twist it into like, yeah, I am pretty good. Even though like Dwight did this accomplishment. I'm like, Michael, you weenie.
Right. There's a couple spots in this season, especially where I think by the end of it, Dwight kind of sees through Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you obviously have the injury, which is another Michael just being an asshole. Dwight's speech, and then drug testing. I think it was like the low point for Michael.
Oh, sure.
So and that's when you start to like change how you view different people too. I think. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
But right now you're just like, wow, Michael's an ass. Like, it's something you forget, especially when you haven't come back through the early stuff. It's like, wow, we love Michael now, but he's a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, he's a terrible person. Just
Like
who he is.
Michael's birthday, that's a real rough one.
Oh.
I mean, because Kevin thinks he might have skin cancer,
Right.
but it's his birthday, Michael. Yeah, and that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just setting up the sort of who Michael is going to be for this season.
Mm-hmm.
So you got anything else for this episode, or you want to?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it a review.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it's this is a number ratio I'm going to be saying a lot this evening. We hit some good episodes, but it's going to be a 4 out of 5 bushy beavers.
You stole my tagline.
Did I? Yes. Oh my goodness.
This to me is one of the better. I mean, this is a top 10 episode for me. So this is going to be 5 out of 5 second drinks.
Nice.
Yeah. Which is one of the great Pam quotes of all time. It's like, no, the ice melts, and it's like, second drink.
Yeah, and of course Jim not being drunk, he's like he can see right through that shit. Okay. Well, next we have sexual harassment. So again, quick overview. The episode starts with Michael kind of bragging about his email forwarding abilities and how he's got some hilarious content. And
Right.
almost like he created it all, right? And then he finds out from corporate that a lawyer's coming down. Well, not specific. Yeah, I think he knows it's a lawyer who's coming down with Jan to talk about some recent things that had happened in the company, because we find out that another higher up got fired or sued because of sexual harassment problems. Michael goes on the defensive because he thinks he's going to get in a lot of trouble.
Right.
And of course, as always with these episodes, hilarity ensues. This is the first episode we meet physically Todd Packer.
Right. This is
Yeah.
the first episode we meet Todd Packer, who might be the worst character in the entire show. I hate him.
Yeah, because I always think about it, and there are times where I feel bad for him, especially like later during like the Florida season. Yeah, but he is such a tool. He's just a whole bag of wieners.
So it's like, it's an interesting thing because you're like, why does Michael like him so much? It's part, one of the questions. And Michael just thinks he's hilarious and he's like the guy.
Right.
Because if you remember back to basketball, he was like, I vouch for you in front of Todd Packer, Dwight. He's talking about taking him to his pickup game. This sorry, cannot talk. This episode is written by B.J. Novak, which is Ryan. Directed by King Quapis. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's going to listen to the show sometime and like email us like, you sons of bitches, you can't pronounce my name correctly. But him and Greg Daniels, Greg Daniels and Paul Feig direct the first 9 episodes of this season. So, I mean, he directed the first 2 episodes. He directed Pilot and Diversity Day. So he does a lot throughout the entire season. And one reason we do bring this up is a lot of people don't realize, one, how integral all these people are to writing and directing, and 2, that there's some really interesting guest directors that will show up, in later seasons.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of people probably don't know that Joss Whedon directed an episode in season 3, so that's really cool.
And then also too, as we read these out moving forward, we'll also see when the actors start directing episodes, because of various reasons. It's a pretty typical path for an actor to take is to start directing, like especially on a show that they're on. But it probably shows like their competence of the content that they're part of. Like by season 3, 4, moving forward after that, like The Office is The Office, and they get it. So they get to put their fun little spin on it or whatever when they're directing it. And I think it's kind of interesting to see them take part.
For sure.
Yeah.
So King Quapis, he at the end of this, we'll have to like rank the directors and which episodes they did.
Yeah.
Because he did this one, he does The Fire, he does Booze Cruise, Casino Night. I mean, he's got some of the heavy hitters in season 2.
Yeah. And then he goes away for a while, but he comes back for the lecture circuits episodes.
Right. And you never know. They might be working on other shows.
Right. Or he might be involved in like an executive producer type capacity, which is not something we wrote up. Yeah.
Right. So, sexual harassment, it is cringy because of Todd. I don't get Todd Packer. And I think is this the first cold open? I think it might be. Is this the one? Is me? No. Sorry, that's next episode. Sorry, I'm getting my episodes confused. Next episode is the very first cold open,
Right.
In the history.
Yeah. Todd Packer, the worst person ever. I mean, great character, very funny in the Office universe, but God, what a terrible guy. And you get to kind of see like this weird relationship that him and Michael have, because Michael obviously really looks up to Todd, but Todd does not treat Michael with the same type of reverence.
And if you think about it, it's a very Todd to Michael is very Michael to Dwight. That's a very those relationships seem very similar, except you never see it, but you do get told that they do hang out together. Like Michael and Dwight do hang out together away from the office.
Yeah.
At some point, Michael says something about wasting all that time watching Battlestar Galactica or something.
Yeah.
And so you have that. But one note I wrote down was simply like, how does Todd have a job? Like that he is basically every time he opens his mouth is a fireball offense.
I agree.
And I just like, how does this guy keep a job? And, I know he's supposed to be a great salesman.
And then the show never really shows us that either, I don't think. Right? Like when I was watching sexual harassment, I was really like trying to rack my brain for a moment where Todd kind of like proves himself at least as an employee of the company, and it never really happens. Like he's always around, and then he's involved a lot in the Florida stuff, but
right. Well, he is their traveling salesman.
Right.
And we see in this episode that he has issues with DUIs and sleeping around, that just being a man whore.
So funny bit about Todd's license plate. It says, I think it's WLHUNG. Yeah. So if you're watching the show for the first time now, you won't know who William Hung is. But William Hung was like this really terrible participant on American Idol.
Is that who that was? I was thinking he was terrible, but he got super popular for being awful.
Yeah, he sang a lot of "She Bangs" by Ricky Martin. Yeah, that was terrible. But obviously, Todd was going for the well hung joke about his dong. But everybody keeps asking about William Hung apparently, and that's like a fun little thing that really sets like a time period for the show. Like it happens a couple of times. Later on, the show does some stuff that I'm not a huge fan of, where they like take cold opens or big important jokes from like popular YouTube videos at the time, which makes sense for Michael's character. But I wish they didn't like make some of them so important. But this William Hung bit is like a big like, hey, it's 2005.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. This episode, we meet Pam's mom for the first time as well.
And speaking of retcons, she is definitely not the same lady who Michael ends up tapping later.
Yes, she is much younger. They
Yeah.
definitely age her up in season 6. Was that season 6 or season 7 when Jim and Pam get married? I'm pretty sure it's season 6.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because that's a really good, because Pam is talking about how her mom's her best friend and all this stuff. So we get this glimpse, and I don't know if you've dated somebody or you are this person, if you're a female, where your mom's your best friend, like whatever the mom says, like they haven't, understanding about who you are. And she's like, Pam's mom waits for Roy to leave, and she's like, okay, which one's Jim?
Right.
Like she knows her daughter's in love with Jim. He seems much better than Roy. Jim hears it and smiles. I thought it was a really good moment that they were kind of foreshadowing what was happening. But yeah, her mom is a major retcon. Mm-hmm. It's also, she's played by 3 different people throughout the series.
3?
3. Mm-hmm.
Is it because there's a voice that's not the same actress, or do we see her 3 different times?
We see her 3 different times. There's another time where we see her mom before they settle on the woman from the blonde lady.
Yeah.
We see her one more time, and she's 3 different actresses play her.
That's pretty good. It's also gives us kind of this idea of like who's aware of the Jim Pam thing aside from the audience, because nobody in the office really references it, right? Like
not yet.
Yeah. So it's just interesting to know that Pam's mom is privy to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll see it more in the next episode. The people are starting to notice something between Jim and Pam.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that next episode. But there's 3 or 4 times this season where they definitely sort of allude to the fact that people are wondering if they're boning, in the warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, so we had that instant in season 1 where Roy almost assaults Jim after the alliance giggle that Jim and Pam share. Mm-hmm. Like you said, during Office Olympics and even during the fire episode, there's some like obvious tension, not tension, but like, open flirtation between them amongst everybody. And then, of course, this season ends with Casino Night, which is like a really big forward leap in the Jim Pam storyline. So they're definitely that's definitely something they wanted to cover throughout this season.
Right. One of the things that was also good, because, Michael kind of gets in trouble, and so he has to watch the video, because the sexual harassment video.
Right.
And he's like, oh, Daryl's like, oh, yeah, I totally banged that girl. She's a whore. Da, da, da. But, I don't know. If you ever work at a corporate office, those videos are legit and real and that bad. Mm-hmm. They're so terrible.
I think I'd read an article a couple weeks ago saying how those types of trainings actually end up indirectly causing more incidents that are that people report or whatever. Probably because of I call it the red button complex, where you tell someone not to do it in such a way that it's annoying. So of course the person's going to go and do it. And not well, I mean, it's always malicious. It's sexual harassment, right?
Right.
But you look at it and it's portrayed so shittily. These 2 idiots come up to this lady and hey, does the carpet match the drapes or whatever? Which is you have to be the biggest douchebag to approach someone and that's the first thing you say to them. And because it's so stupid, of course, people are going to go around joking about it, and that's what causes sexual harassment. In that regard, yeah.
Yeah, this entire episode, because Michael, he's feeling like he's getting things taken away from him. He can't be the person he is. It's comedy is dead, da da da, and he keeps making inappropriate jokes. This is also the first That's What She Said.
Officially?
Yeah. So, but Jim's so does that include That's What She Said jokes? And so he starts giving him phrases that he could say that's what she said to.
Yeah.
It was funny, and you see this a lot in the office during that exchange. Packer is so excited. You could see it in his face, like he knows exactly what Jim is doing, and it just seems like exactly what that person would do in the real life. And so I don't know if that's like a conscious choice or just like things that they don't think are actually happening.
Yeah, because the crazy, I remember a way that a lot of production people were talking about the show was that they do like this single camera shoot, which is more expensive generally, because they have to shoot with one camera, they do a scene, and they have to reset the whole thing to shoot the opposing side.
Right.
And then the way The Office portrays it is that like there's 3 or 4 cameras in the office at the same time, getting all the reactions at the same time. So like from a production standpoint, like I know for a fact that they're just shooting Todd Packer and they're like, okay, now this is happening, so what would you do? And like he's just sitting there in a silent room going, shaking his head all maliciously or whatever. But it plays like so well when Jim's feeding Michael all that stuff, and then and he blurts out, "That's what she said."
And he gets so happy about it. He's like, ah. This entire episode would pretty much get Michael fired. Just like his emails and here's like Dwight's like, oh, here's where the monkey does the sex thing, and then like Michael wants to forward it around, like that would totally get you fired. Yeah. Done. Over.
And then of course his later on when Packer's trying to tell a joke and kind of gestures toward Phyllis to say without saying a description of a character in his joke. And Kevin fills in the blank, and it's like this awkward thing where Kevin's being blamed for saying something offensive even though Packer was doing it.
Right.
So to make people feel better, Michael is hugging Phyllis, and he's like, you know what the only thing I'm afraid of is? It's getting a boner. And that is going to get Michael fired.
Oh, absolutely. But he never does.
Never.
This is also, I think, I don't remember exactly what it was, but in this episode is really the first reference to Meredith being a slut. Like being basically willing to do anything with anybody.
Yeah, because again, she's pretty normal in the first season.
Right.
Second season really lets us kind of flesh out a lot of these background characters. Yeah, of course, unfortunately, not for Devin, unfortunately.
Not for Devin, unfortunately. I guess it's kind of hard to remember. This is only the 8th episode of the show.
Yeah.
We're only 8 episodes in, so there's still a lot of development for the Merediths and the Creeds, and because I don't even know has Creed had a spoken line yet. No, because we haven't done performance review yet, right? And I know he has a bit where he's trying to explain the difference between infer and imply, and then Michael says he smells. Right. I think his first spoken lines are in the Halloween episode because it's up to between him and Devin which one's going to get fired.
Oh yeah. Which is like you said, top of the next podcast episode. All right. Yeah, I mean, really, all my notes were just about how terrible Packer is about this. The blow-up doll that Jim is dating is great. That's funny.
Well, put some clothes on. And this is another nudity in the workplace stuff there's 3 or 4 times where someone will be naked or something in the office.
Right.
Yeah, because fun run. And then Jim's talking head. He's like, oh, I didn't realize this was a working office.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the blow-up doll.
I think one of my favorite Michael lines here, well, because he does a couple, that's what she says in this episode, like you said. And one is where he's inviting people into that room to watch the sexual harassment video. And the way people are responding, he's like, that's what she said. And then Pam goes, well, my mother's coming later. And he says that's what she said because it's instinctual, but he realizes how over the top it is. So he tries to cough the joke away. And he's like, oh, well, no, that's cool, great. Yeah, totally fails because he's already said the damn thing.
Right. Yeah. So actually, with the whole retconning of Pam's mom's age, it kind of makes you wonder how old Pam really is at this point. Because I thought she was like 23, 24, been out of school for a little while. But they also kind of retcon her education too. I felt like she didn't have a college degree, and then later they give her one.
Right, because she said she played volleyball in college, right?
Right, and that's a huge retcon.
Yeah.
For her character, because she wasn't sporty at all, and they make reference to that a lot. And then all of a sudden she's a collegiate level volleyball player.
Yeah.
Which, like, I don't know. Do you ever go to like college volleyball?
Well, yeah. I mean, the kids that continue to play sports in college are like the kids who like are hoping to get discovered by professional institutions. So
Right, but like those girls are crazy. Like,
yeah,
like insane shape. Like, you have to be a legitimate athlete to play at the collegiate level. So it just doesn't seem like Pam is that way.
yeah,
Like, she doesn't have the drive to be that way. So that's sort of a weird retcon, because you always see that like Pam gets really excited about something and puts a lot of effort into it, then just kind of lets it die.
right. When it doesn't work out, right? Yeah.
Right, and so it's just kind of a weird thing with her, and we'll get to that more down the road, but it's just one of those weird kind of retcons about her.
Yeah, and it's really a one-off type of thing too, because it's just during the company picnic where it's like relevant,
Right.
and it never comes up again.
Never comes up again.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about it? I mean, it's again, there's not a lot of B. I mean, I guess the B storyline would be Pam's mom showing up, but it's
Right.
like it's so like small because it's really just like one or two lines off. There's that bit where like Roy's all dressed up. Right? He's got his stupid collared shirt on, and
His sweater.
yeah, he's like what a dork.
It's also interesting time because this was '05. Not everyone has cell phones yet, So, or Pam's mom just didn't have one, so she didn't know, and it's like weird,
Yeah, another thing that's like, hey, this is what year it is.
Right.
And of course, again, in 2005, no one could have assumed that we'd all be walking around with personal assistants in our pocket that would allow us to catch the original 150 Pokemon. But, yeah, but like watching back on it in retrospect, you're like, how does no one have a cell phone? I will say, though, being in Pennsylvania this weekend, I have like no service in half that state. So having a cell phone presently wouldn't even freaking matter there. Crazy.
Okay, so what are you gonna rate? What are you gonna rate this episode?
Well, I'm afraid to say it. I don't want to steal your thing, but I did make sure this time around to write them all out. So I'm going to say 4 out of 5 baths with Pam.
Oh man, see, I wasn't like a huge. I don't know. This is a weaker episode in my opinion. So I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5.
Wow.
Todd Packers. So there you go.
All right. Man, that's a big discrepancy. That's probably our biggest one so far.
It is. Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. All right.
So our next episode we're coming into is Office Olympics. Is where we see Michael buying his condo, which he has until he leaves the show. There's. Is dinner party the only other time we're at the condo? I feel like there's one. No.
Michael Scott Paper Company.
Michael Scott Paper Company. Yeah. So this becomes a secondary location, that kind of plays throughout the show. And it's referenced a few times, like about how he sells it on eBay when he's certain he's gonna. It's like, yep, sold in record time.
You know what? I bet technically too, we might see bits of it in Threat Level Midnight, because like stuff that was shot like for Michael's movie, I bet some of that was in his condo, like him eating breakfast and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, probably true.
So yeah, but it's also the first time we meet Carol Stills,
Right.
who becomes important at least for the next season and a half or so.
And Carol, the actress who plays Carol Stills and Steve Carell are married.
Yeah,
So that's a cool little thing, getting his wife involved.
they were both on the Daily Show together, though I don't know if that's where they met. but they were both like special correspondents or whatever for what's his face, Jon Stewart.
I just gotta say, good job, Steve Carell. Good job.
Yeah, he did a great job. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like a lot of these, like I watch 30 Rock all the time too, and a lot of times these shows will like make their main character, like Michael or Tina Fey or whatever, like be these characters that have a lot of trouble like finding their significant others. But then when you look back at it in retrospect, like they do pretty good. You know, like they have one or two people they date a season or something like that, and it's like, of course we sympathize with them while we're watching it, but when you look back, I mean, Tina Fey dated Matt Damon, right?
Right.
And then Steve Carell, yeah, Carol, Jan, oh my goodness, why did I forget that lady who he marries name? Holly.
Then there was the married woman.
Right. Yeah, he does a great job.
Yeah, he does an okay job. Yeah,
He's got to relax.
it's kind of like in Big Bang Theory. Like they talk about these nerds who have all these terrible times, but they're always getting laid.
Right.
It's like,
yeah,
man, come on.
yeah, I know. This is one of those episodes where the A and B storylines are pretty wide and pretty relevant at the same time.
Right.
So while Michael and Dwight are out buying the condo, the office is enjoying the Office Olympics. And it starts with Jim walking around the office, kind of procrastinating. No, not even. He's talking to Oscar, and he sees Oscar's weird little scoreboard for hate ball. Is that what it's called?
It was
It's basically paper football, right? But
right, but they call it hate ball. Like, why do you call it hate ball? Because of how much Angela hates it.
yeah, it's so good. And then we find out Dunderball, which is what Toby plays, I guess, with Kelly.
Right.
That's not where they sit. And then those are the only ones we see. But then there's Flonkerton that shows up, but obviously they made up that name.
Yeah, they were racing with
Like big bundles of papers.
like a box of paper and
Yeah.
racing around the office. That Florida Phyllis wins.
Yep.
And this is when you start seeing a little bit more of like Phyllis's personality, because like this Jim says something like, Phyllis, you have HO, and Phyllis is like, oh, you calling me a hoe?
Yeah.
And Jim's like, what?
And then even in the fire episode also, like there's a weird bit where I guess music's playing in the background or something, and Phyllis is like dancing like really interestingly. Yeah.
But like we were saying, this is the first cold open, and it's where Michael gets Ryan to come into the office early just to bring him basically like an Egg McMuffin.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, go ahead, the office is yours, run around, risky business, take your pants off.
Yeah.
Which is the first time that he's really like hit on Ryan, which is weird. That's a like, weird relationship that I don't really get, I guess, because they never really explain it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible, and this is total speculation, that Michael might not realize he's just like kind of bisexual. And like, so he really misses the mark with like that like bro humor where, dudes are like, like hugging each other, like broing out. But like Michael takes it like just a step too far where it becomes a little intimate.
Right.
And again, he's kind of naive and he doesn't know a lot of things. I mean, obviously Jan is kind of a crazy lady, but he like cries when they talk about like different sex stuff that he had with Jan. So, I think Michael might be a little repressed, so he might not fully understand his feelings at all times,
Right, and, this kind of comes to a full head during the deposition episode where they because Jan turns over his diary, and they're like, who's this other woman, Ryan? And Toby starts laughing, so it's like there's obviously something weird going on there. We just don't know what yet.
No, it's true. And then he's just a really funny, smart-looking guy, or whatever he says like that. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Right.
What is your favorite sport that takes place during the Office Olympics?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of what we actually get to see, because we don't get to see a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, one that would be interesting to watch and really hard would be the one they're doing the laps around the office
with the coffee cups. Yeah.
When Michael walks in and kind of kills everything, but that would be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to watch my coworkers burn themselves like that. I think it'd be hilarious.
I would have wanted to participate in the stuffing your face with M&M contest. Yeah, I saw Kevin do that, and I was like, I wish I was there.
See, this is also, from what I understand and can remember, the first Beef Farm reference, and a reference to Moe's.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that, and how it, like, they talk about this, and this is just sort of a weird thing from where I'm from versus the Northeast, especially. He's got a big farm, and it's only 60 acres.
Right.
I know for a lot of people that seems like a lot of land, but where I'm from in Oklahoma and Texas, it's not uncommon for farms to be 20 or 30,000 acres.
Right.
So that's just a weird kind of thing. You got like cultural thing that you may or may not be easy to understand for some people.
And yeah, I mean, so, and then going the other way, me primarily living in like the urban area of New Jersey, I don't know what the hell an acre is. So 60 acres sounds like that's huge.
I mean, it's not a small amount of land,
Yeah.
but like just for funsies, when my parents lived in Oklahoma, they had 30 acres.
Yeah.
And it was dirt cheap,
Right.
It's also funny, like, Michael keeps his, like, certificate of authenticity for his watch on his wall. Like, you can see it on his wall.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, he's the kind of guy who buys himself a world's best boss mug, right?
Right.
So, like, any, like, nice-looking thing he's going to put up in a document frame. We mentioned it a couple minutes ago, but one of the games that is brought up maliciously is called Pam Pong.
Pam Pong. Mm-hmm.
Where Angela reveals to Pam when Pam inquires if she has any games, that Angela tallies the amount of times that Jim gets up from his desk to talk to her, insinuating that, Angela's kind of privy to the flirtatious behavior between the two.
Right. Well, she does sit right there.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually be kind of hard.
Yeah, she's facing the opposite way.
She's facing the opposite direction. But it is a small office, so she could probably just hear it when they start talking to each other.
Yeah.
Another thing I have written down is I think the farm size gets retconned. I think it gets bigger as the show goes on. Now, it could just be that he's, buying land or whatnot, but I think it ends up being a couple hundred acres by the time, like, the farm rolls around and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because there's, like, a lot of weird familial things that Dwight's got going on, too.
Right.
Like, obviously, he's got his cousin, but there's the Shrewd Farm episode, which is, like, the kind of the pilot for the spinoff that never happened.
Right.
You find out he's got, like, a lot of family and friends that kind of come around. So I wonder, like, if his farm is connected to other Schrute-like family members, and maybe, like, he, through hostile takeovers, kind of, like, acquires that farm, like, off camera,
Yeah. One of the things that I do like about this episode is because you start to see some of the continuity. We talk a lot about retcons, but, like, Pam's candy bin never leaves the desk.
Right.
Like, that thing is there all 9 seasons. And then eventually when we have the cold open where Pam buys the pencil cup.
Tamales. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The pencil, because when Jim puts all of Dwight's stuff in the vending machine,
Right.
that pencil cup is there for the rest of the run of the show.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you start to see those kind of cool continuity things. Yeah, they do retcon some stuff, but they also do keep a lot of things together.
Right.
And again, you just see more and more of just like how much Michael kind of hates Dwight and how much Dwight, A, doesn't see it, and B, just wants to be his friend.
Yeah. I was gonna say we skipped over it real quick, but the cold open for this episode was it the cold? I think it was the cold open. Maybe it wasn't. No, the cold open is what you said. with coming in early. But there's a bit early on in the episode, I'm terrible at speaking today, where Jim and Pam are throwing stuff into Dwight's pencil cup using paper clips and all that kind of stuff. And Pam says she does that when Dwight's not there, which got me thinking because Dwight has that whole bit how he's like never out. He's got a perfect attendance record. So like, what are the instances where he's not there?
Well,
like, is
I
it 'cause
mean,
he's sick or sales calls? Or,
Sales calls. I
Right.
mean, yeah, I would think that they're gone quite a bit.
like,
Just-
why wasn't he there at the time? Because Michael hadn't left yet. And again, it's little, and they don't reference Dwight's impeccable attendance record yet. So maybe it wasn't the thing that mattered. But worth noting. Just, let those office creators know I'm on to them.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe it's because it was a condo being sold by a company, I'm guessing. But like, if you've never bought a house, signing those papers and stuff, that's not how closing works at all.
Right.
At all. I mean, it took when we bought it because we bought our first house a couple of months ago, and I signed my name for 45 minutes to an hour. There's like you're there for a long time just signing and signing and signing and signing.
Yeah. It's not like Michael seeming to just do one signature and he's done.
Right.
Yeah.
But yes, there are other things where after you get to a certain process, certain part of the process, if you do walk away, you are losing money.
Right.
Yeah, that's just how it is. I don't know why it was 7,000, but that seemed kind of high.
Yeah. I mean, and it's another instance where we kind of are shown that Michael isn't like this rich, well-off manager like he pretends to be. Like in Hot Girl, he says that he's probably the closest in the office to being a millionaire.
Right.
But we don't know by how much. I mean, maybe just because he makes a little bit more than everybody else, he's the closest.
Yeah, it is something you come to see later. I think in next season that they really kind of screw Michael over and how much he gets paid.
Yeah. And then it's like really while he's on the show, it's kind of always like a thing that's brought up. Is that like he's never really super well off ever. And it seems like it's really just because of his own buying habits.
Yeah.
Like he's a little frivolous with buying some stuff, and then eventually Jan comes on, and some of those issues are kind of put on her. But yeah, so again, it's just another reminder that he's not so great with his money.
Right. Here's another small kind of just weird thing. According to, if you watch the clock in Michael's car from when they're going to the condo and coming back from the condo, only 9 minutes have passed according to his clock. I know it's because they probably just shot those two scenes back to back.
Yeah.
But still, it's just one of those funny things. Like if you see the time passing, but when they go back to the office, it's like 2:00 in the afternoon or something.
Right.
Because when they leave to go to the condo, it's 11:11, and when they get back in the car, it's like 11:20.
Well, because then they switch. I mean, Michael, I think Michael seems to be the only guy who drives who gets that backseat camera angle. Because everybody else, and then obviously him too, at some point get that like mounted camera in
Like
front,
dash
looking through the
camera,
windshield. Yeah. But there's a couple of instances where Michael's driving and like him and Dwight are like have these interesting interactions. In season 4, where Michael drives into the lake, during that whole bit, there's a camera guy in the back seat, and like he has to like get out of the car before he gets flooded into. But I feel like when other people drive, which doesn't happen too often, but they don't get that fancy camera angle either. I will say, at the end of this episode, when they're giving out the big awards for the Office Olympics, Michael is first for closing his condo, they say. Mm-hmm. Dwight is second, and I don't think they gave a reason, but he just was.
Right.
And then Jim is third. I was like, why is Jim third? He didn't participate in anything. But it's fine.
I think it was just a way to like cheer people up and like make Michael forget that they were really goofing off.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Something else I kind of jotted down and was thinking about is great. We don't know how much the house costs and everything, but seeing that Michael is kind of bad with his cash and with the current, at the time anyway, from when this was supposed to be happening, there's a good chance that like Michael's only walking away with like 1% equity in his condo when he signs those papers.
Sure.
Yeah, because this was back before the housing crisis and all that stuff, so everything kind of changed. So I don't know.
Speaking of the housing crisis and speaking of Steve Carell, if you haven't seen The Big Short, you should.
It's on my list.
It's very good. It's on Netflix now.
Oh, really good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
to know. I have next weekend planned.
There you go. Anyways, back to The Office.
Yeah, then you see, like, again, just how unrealistic and in his own world and how much Michael wants things to be like movies. Because he's talking about, like, how he's the hottest person in the development and
Right.
where all the hotties is just like he wants things to be so perfect and they just don't end up
Right.
that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and really, he never really gets out of that mentality.
Not
when he-
really, no.
Yeah, because even when he ends up with Holly, Holly like kind of lets him live that life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. He grows in like multiple other ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he definitely still continues to see the world kind of warped and skewed. So anything else?
No, I think I'm good for this episode.
So what do you got for your ratings for this one?
This is a good episode. I'll give it 3 out of 5 gay-friendly condos.
Okay. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 yogurt lids.
Oh wow, it's low.
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't progress like the plot as a whole. It's kind of there. There's some good bits or whatever like that, but the ending kind of just kind of coasts. You know, Michael walks in and everybody stops playing the game, and then Jim gets 3rd place. I don't get it.
Okay.
Our last episode of this episode is The Fire, in which the office gets a fire alarm going, but it's not a drill. Everybody is forced to evacuate, and the rest of the episode takes place outside in the parking lot. Written by B.J. Novak, directed by Ken Kwapis, as we said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this one. It's a good one to me.
Yeah, it's a good episode. Early on, because we see the reemergence of Katie, the hot girl from the Hot Girl episode, Amy Adams, and she calls Dunder Mifflin and gets Pam, and Pam has to transfer her to Jim, and you can tell she's really upset about it. Like, she does not like Katie. She can kind of tell that that Pam has a thing for Jim, and
Right.
it's just more of that sort of subtlety, and you just tell it in her eyes. That she's like, yeah, you could just give her your extension. I'm just like, come on, Pam, don't be a bitch.
You know, it's interesting too because the cold opens thus far haven't really differed too much from the content of the episode. They were just like little one-offs, or they kind of expound on the concept of the rest of it. Like later on, like when we go into like the gym pranks,
Right.
it's like really its own thing. But so far, these are just like, here's the episode before the episode, you know. Yeah. So then there's another instance here where Michael is weird toward Ryan. And I'm kind of skipping around a bit, but like one of the last games that they play outside is Who Would You Do?
Who would you do? Mm-hmm.
And Mike, and the weird thing about it too, right? Because Jim makes a gay joke during this bit about wanting to do Kevin.
Right.
But he explains it in a funny way and everybody gets it. Michael says, I would have sex with Ryan.
Right.
Which is like less innocent, you know?
Well, yeah, it's much more direct.
Yeah. So, and Ryan felt, you know, again, we'll get into it, but Ryan feels super uncomfortable around Michael for most of this episode. So this is like icing on the awkward cake for Ryan.
Yeah.
I also have in my notes here, in terms of characters who grow and characters who go missing, who the hell is Marjorie? Because when they're trying to look for numbers, Dwight offers Marjorie's number, whoever this hoe is, and yeah, they talk about it, but I don't know who the hell Marjorie is. Nobody we've ever seen. So more, not even retconning, I guess, but just that's a person who worked there, and she doesn't work there later on.
Right, and you see a lot of that. I would say probably by the middle of this season, they get like all the people ironed out. But there's definitely a lot of people in the background that you just never see again.
Right.
Ever again.
I also have here Michael's like greatest, bravest moment where that fire alarm goes off and he almost pushes over Jim and Oscar to get the hell out.
Right. Yeah, you can tell he kind of runs it off as like, look, we're supposed to be equal, so if I let them out first, I'm getting sued or
Right.
in trouble. It's like, yeah, just keep doing that stuff.
Yeah. I also have here, in terms of fireable offenses, that the warehouse probably would have been fired because they're like drinking beer and chucking glass bottles in the back, and like no one's monitoring them at all. Yeah, so that doesn't really work well for Daryl's reputation as being a great warehouse.
No, and it's something you see like just how much weight Daryl gains through the series. Same with Stanley. Like Stanley was a bigger guy, but he wasn't the whale that he became.
Yeah. I wonder in terms of like off-screen, behind-the-scenes stuff, because the dude who plays Daryl, Craig Daniel, right? He like got caught with meth like somewhere in the middle of the show's run.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I wonder like if he was like doing it and like kicking the habit or whatever, he like gained some weight.
It's hard on the it's hard on the metabolism.
Yeah. But that's serious stuff. We're keeping it light here. I'll get away from meth. That's my bad.
Yeah, well, because you also get the sense that, because we kind of talked about last episode and the fact that we do have some listener email about, but like Michael does have a signed baseball of some type on his in his office, and I was like, I wonder who does Michael have a baseball signed of? Because he never talks about sports really, besides him like saying "Go Pirates" or talking about taking people to like the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins or whatever.
He does talk about he has like a basketball analogy he puts here when he finds out that Ryan is going to business school, where he talks about trying to make himself feel better. He says that like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, etc., went from high school to the NBA.
Right.
And that is a parallel to his own rise to power without having to go to college. But like really quickly, he kind of reneges on it, and he has this like really rare self-aware moment. He's like, "Well, that's not the same at all." And he spends the rest of the episode being super depressed because Ryan is this smart guy who's gonna, Michael doesn't know it yet, but who's gonna be his boss moving forward at some point.
Yeah, relatively soon too.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, before Ryan just really understands that Michael basically is just talking out of his ass most times.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I want to know the 10 secrets to business. Michael's making up all this random crap to him.
Yeah. Like he says one, he's like, all right, come back later for the rest, because he's got to take time out of his day to figure out what the hell they are.
Like image is everything. So you have like the Sebring and...
Which is almost like a character in this show, really.
It is. Because the coup, he gets really pissed off at Dwight when he doesn't like the Sebring.
Right.
Which is what, next season? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's season 3.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think so too.
No, it can't be 4. It's gotta be season 3.
Yeah, because it happens. Yeah, it's before all the Connecticut people join up, I think.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. And that's also before. And Jan's still in charge and at Dunder Mifflin, so it has to be at some point. It has to be in there at some point.
Yeah.
But so this is another fun episode because you do get to see people sort of outside the office, literally outside the office here. But they, so they start playing their Desert Island games, Desert Island movies, and you some people have terrible movies like Legends of the Fall and Legally Blonde for Meredith, who also, it's also Katie, is a big fan of Legally Blonde, which is actually a better movie than most people give it credit for. We watched it recently. It's actually pretty funny.
Well, because we actually talked about Legally Blonde last episode that we did, and I said I couldn't talk shit about it because my girlfriend loves that movie.
Right.
And here you are saying it, and you like it a little bit more, and that makes my job easier as being a boyfriend who doesn't poop on Legally Blonde. We're okay. We're doing great.
Wait, no. Never mind. I was not. Wrong blonde movie. I was thinking.
Clueless?
Clueless. That's what I was thinking. Yes.
Well, she likes Clueless too, so
Clueless is a pretty good movie. I've
Yeah.
never seen Legally Blonde.
Okay. All right. So we'll get there one day.
Yeah, and so far, Angela really hasn't become you're starting to see that she's more of a bitch, but she isn't crazy weird kind of too, because
Right.
eventually she becomes the creepy baby poster lady.
Yeah. Because right now, there's sprinkles of her overt Christianity.
Right.
But after Gay Witch Hunt in season 3, she's really much more of a type A stickler, conservative, and less a religious zealot,
Right.
But so here her book is the Bible, and then they have to prod her to list a second book, which is a Purpose Life. Yeah. Yeah, but we do see more of her again. This is where Phyllis is dancing very seductively in the background in Jim's direction. An interesting thing that comes out during Who Would You Do is when Jim says that you can include people who are present, Oscar is one of the people who says Pam.
Right. And so
it's one of those things where did we always know he was going to be gay and this is his beard thing because obviously Pam is the pretty one in the office, or was he not gay story-wise yet? The writers hadn't decided that for him, so Oscar would have genuinely banged Pam. Right.
I actually have that written down as is Oscar being gay a retcon? Maybe we'll see. Maybe as we're watching these, we'll see something in season 2 that will help us pick up the clues that he isn't. Well, actually, I think it's in this season where we figure out he is gay.
That's right, because it's he calls out sick and Dwight tails him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's sooner than later, I think. I'm not entirely sure where that is.
I think it's going to be... It might be... I wonder if it's email surveillance?
No, that's not... No, that's email surveillance is where they go to Jim's party.
Right. Then maybe it's the carpet.
I could see it being that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what do you think of the Desert Island movies? So I have so Pam has Fargo, Edward Scissorhands, Dazed and Confused, Princess Bride, and she's about to say her favorite when she gets interrupted. So we never actually figure out her number one movie.
Right. So what do I think about her movies? I mean, yeah, they're pretty good. I wonder how many of them are informed by what she's afraid Jim would think of them. But my girlfriend doesn't like The Breakfast Club. I like it. I'm a fan. Princess Bride, great. Fargo, probably my favorite one on that list. Edward Scissorhands is so to me. But yeah, she did and I wonder too if it speaks to her age, you're
right.
Yeah. When she was really susceptible to watching all these movies, and it kind of does, yeah. I would agree with you that it probably pegs her close to being around the early to mid 20s in this show. Mm-hmm. And rewatching the show and really scrutinizing about stuff makes me realize how many of the shows that I have characters that were the age I was when I started watching them. Always Sunny, those people were all 26 when they started that show, and it made me reflect at what was I doing when I was 26. and I was not creating a very popular TV show. And it makes me feel bad.
What's interesting is Rainn Wilson, he plays Dwight as a much younger person than he actually is. Because he just turned 50, so that means he was like upper 30s when he started making The Office. And
Right.
Dwight's obviously portrayed as, 20, or I mean, I could see him being like 24, 23, 24.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be older than Jim, at least. Because the way he present, like they don't really see each other as peers,
Right.
so I think he treats him more of like a youthful annoyance. But yeah, he's definitely not like too old. Like maybe like late 20s, I'd give probably. I mean, the show goes on for so damn long, though.
Yeah.
So did you do Desert Island movies?
I could pull something off the top of my head.
Yeah, I did write them down, but I wrote them stream of conscious because I wanted it to be reminiscent of, being asked in the middle of a parking lot while my building's on fire.
Okay, how about you do Desert Island albums? Okay, so we
Okay.
get just straight off the top.
Okay, so let me do that. Desert Island albums. Well, I'm going to say Take Off Your Pants and Jacket by Blink-182.
Good one.
Okay. I have to do 5.
Let's do 3.
Let's do 3. Let's save some time. I'm going to say, boy, this is just going to... I'm going to say Warning by Green Day. I'm obviously following a trend here, so I'm going to try to throw a curveball for my third one. Oh, no. The only thing that's coming to mind is a terrible CD. Chocolate Starfish. And then is that right? Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water by Limp Bizkit. That's so terrible. My time on the island is going to be the worst.
And everyone's going to hate you.
Seriously. No.
Desert Island albums for me would be England, Keep My Bones by Frank Turner. The 59 Sound by Gaslight Anthem, and Horoscope by Eve 6.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Man, yeah. Your island sounds a little bit nicer than mine. I just wish, I don't know why, you know what it was? Because I took that trip to Pennsylvania and driving home for whatever reason. I was like, we're driving, let's listen to Rollin' by Limp Bizkit. And that's like the only album that's in my head right now. Terrible.
It would be like, yeah, there's a lot of albums that are right there in that 3 spot for me. I could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could change like any day, right?
Right. It would be hard for me not to take an MXPX album because I love those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I have forever. And so we haven't really touched on too much, but we have the whole sort of side stuff with Ryan and Michael and how that gets really uncomfortable. And then Dwight getting really pissed off about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like starts playing like "Everybody Hurts" by REM, like super loud, and Jim's like trying not to crack up. He's like, "You know what you should do? You should quit. Show them both."
Yeah, I know, but he's like, yeah, he can't keep it together. I also wrote, well, so let's go back, because of Dwight. I mean, this episode does a pretty good job of like really still furthering the relationship that Michael and Dwight have together, of like this like mentor, mentee, friend, whatever, and how Ryan like is really in between, and then Dwight has like this weird little brother complex,
right?
Where like he tries to like give him noogies and stuff. He's all like, he tries to be one of the guys, but like he's like super socially inept and like does not pull it off, which is weird because Michael is equally socially inept.
Like sort of a dominance kind of move for Dwight, like him trying to show like, oh, you know what, I know you're daddy's favorite, but I'm still the big brother, right? That That's kind of idea.
Yeah. And it even goes so far too that Dwight's still trying to stick up for Michael, even though Michael's given up on like his business savvy.
Right.
Like, admitting to Ryan that Ryan probably knows more about business than he does. Mm-hmm. But then it's revealed who started the fire.
Right. And so the question is, and maybe there's something in the background that I missed, but how did Dwight know it was Ryan's pita?
We do see Ryan around the toaster, but it's a good point as to how anybody would know who specifically put it in there. Just spitballing, I'd have to guess that maybe that's something that Ryan had been eating for the week or something like that.
Right.
Like, he had a bunch of frozen ones. So it just made sense to him. Yeah, it's not super clear. Because my brother was watching it with me the other day too, and he's all like, "What does he think he's going to learn up there? Like he's like some type of like fire deputy cop."
Well, he is.
But he is a sheriff's marshal,
volunteer sheriff's deputy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't quite know, but Ryan fesses up like real quick. Yeah.
It was also pretty funny about it is you see Dwight able to spoof songs a lot better than Michael does.
Yeah.
He makes up the song about Ryan starting the fire.
Yeah, I think Dwight definitely has like this like pretty heavy rock and roll background personally, because like there's that one bit too where him and Jim go on a sales call and Dwight sits in the back seat like rocking out like to get himself pumped up.
Right.
And he does that during performance review too. Like it's kind of his MO. So yeah, he definitely has this history of like classic rock things going on for him in a way that Michael seems to like kind of go more with like whatever's popular at whatever given time.
Right. And you're at the beginning of this episode, Ryan's like, I don't want to be a guy here.
Yep.
And then he becomes a fire guy, which gets referenced again. I think it's the first episode of season 5. Kevin's like, hey, look, it's the fired guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, it gets referenced in season 4 when he comes back after becoming a boss, where Kevin comes up and says fire guy, and then Andy tries to say it too, but Kevin's like, you weren't here for that.
Right, but it couldn't have been. It would have had to have been in season 5, because Goodbye Toby is the season finale of season 4, and that's when he gets arrested. Right?
Well, season 4 is when they get together, and that's all the Dunder Mifflinity.
Right.
Dunder Mifflin Infinity. So he's the boss for 2 seasons.
No, just one. Just one.
So it's just season 4, I think.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's the first episode of season 5 that he comes back.
Oh, being the fired guy. I get you.
Right,
Okay.
fired guy.
I'm with you. Yep, you're right. You're right.
Wait, hey, okay. Hey, yeah, and you're right. Yeah, he does say something.
Dunder Mifflin Infinity.
Right, but yeah, Kevin does call him fire guy a couple of times.
Yeah. Kevin's like the only one who remembers that joke. And I also wrote one little oddity. So Katie shows up at the end of this episode. She's referenced. She shows up. Her and Jim are going to go out to lunch. Katie parks right behind the damn fire truck.
Yeah.
She just pulls up and then she starts playing Desert Island things. I guess she's so attractive that none of the firefighters care. But it just seems like a big safety hazard, Katie. Jesus.
Yeah, I really wish I could read my handwriting, because I do have something that's like Katie equals something, but she's also pretty. I literally cannot read what I wrote.
Well, she brings up.
It's basically
Legally Blonde, yeah.
Okay. So she does bring up Legally Blonde, and Pam laughs at her, and Pam kind of realizes that. I think in that moment, Pam realizes that Jim won't be with Katie forever. And so Katie is essentially Meredith, but hot and not a whore.
I see.
That's okay. That's basically who she is, and so that's who they portray her as, is the same level of intelligence as Meredith, just hot.
They have this little bit where Jim and Katie have a cute little thing about going to lunch and who's going to drive, and they have a little smooch. And Pam gets jealous, and then Jim walks around the car, and when he looks back, Pam has composed herself and pulls Roy in for a kiss, making him feel jealous. So they're playing this little mind game that youthful people play.
If you're listening to this, love isn't this hard, guys.
Yeah.
Don't be that way. Just tell the people how you feel, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Trust me on this one. You'll save a whole lot of sleep if you just be straight with people.
That is this week's Love Notes from Love Dr. Jacob. there was something else I was gonna say about this whole thing too, but I forget. But it's a good it's a good episode.
It
I
is a
like
good
it, yeah.
episode. It's funny.
Oh, Meredith. That's what I was gonna say because you brought Meredith. This also pushes the whole slutty Meredith thing because, Jim chickens out, doesn't say Pam when it's his turn to say who he do. He says
Right.
Kevin. And then when everybody's busy, the girls are talking about who they would do. And a lot of them say Jim right off the bat, waiting for Pam to kind of agree. And then she starts naming other people in the office.
Toby.
Right. And every single person that Pam names, Meredith's sitting there with a big old smile on her face because anybody with a penis, she'd bang.
Right. Damn it, I just had something and lost it. So I don't remember. It was. This also when they're playing Who Would You Do? Because Roy shows up.
Oh,
And you start to see just his tone deafness and just how little he cares about what he says around Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Because we saw it in the Dundies when she's watching the old ones, and he's like, he accepts the award for longest engagement. It's like, we'll be back next year.
Right.
And in this episode, he's all like, who's that tight ass Christian chick? Because Pam's waiting for him to say her.
Right.
And he's like, so he kind of starts hitting on Angela in front of Pam. It's like, dude, don't be a douche. But you kind of see just how big of a douchebag he is.
Well, that's interesting too because later on, Angela kind of develops like this, just like kind of physical crush on Roy. Where she says like when they find out that their branch is closing, and at this point, Roy and Pam have broken up. But Roy goes up there and he finds out, and Angela's the one revealing this information. But she's like, "Don't worry, Roy, you'll be okay. You're very," and she kind of gives him a look over, and she's like, "strong." But like she is physically attracted to Roy and would bang him.
I'll have to be watching for that one because I've never caught that.
Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong. I will say too, and I keep trying to prod my girlfriend into agreeing with me because this is the first time she's watched it. So I think she's middle of season 4 now or something.
Mm-hmm.
But early on, I asked her like, is she into Angela? Because as the show goes on, I kind of get into her. She's kind of this pretty little blonde lady you could put in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But she starts off so mean early on and like kind of like, as the show gets more money, everybody looks prettier, right?
Right.
I'd even give Meredith a massage at some point. But but then so Angela gets all cute or whatever, but my girlfriend does not see it. And maybe it's just too hard to get around her rough exterior to find
and,
Angela adorable. Yeah.
I've seen some pictures of the actress.
Mm-hmm.
She's jacked. Like six pack. Like
Yeah.
you don't see it because she wears, the really conservative,
Right.
no unshowy clothing, but like she is jacked as a person. And that's what you start to see with these shows. So they start making, especially for a show like this, no one was really established yet, so they were all broke. So now they can have like trainers and go to the gym, and
Right. They
that's
start
why-
making some money. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, because then there's this one episode later on. Oh, it's like it's another Halloween episode where they have a Halloween contest, and whoever wins is going to get something.
Right. It's
and then-
the coupon book.
Yeah. And then Angela changes into like a slutty nurse outfit.
Right. And she's like falling out the top.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Wow. She's got a rack on her.
She's got stuff going on.
So
All right.
J. Ray, who would you do?
It's going to be Pam. Pam all the way. Pam is
Pam
just
all
a
the way.
delight. Yeah. I mean, unless it's the real world, then I have to say my girlfriend because she listens.
Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, if you want to talk office regulars, definitely Pam. If not, then Katie, right?
I don't know. I might pick Pam over Katie. You know what? Amy Adams is a little too small for me. I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'3". You seem like a tall guy though.
I'm 6 foot.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's
But
something.
my wife's 5'2", so I'm used
Okay.
to.
I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I already slouch as it is, so I don't want to be hanging out with someone who's gonna make me like walking around like Igor.
Is she is Amy Adams a short person?
I think so, but everybody looks so tiny on TV. Let's see.
It's true.
Amy Adams.
The thing is, most of those people are most people in Hollywood are short.
Yeah, because that's just how. Oh, she's 5'4". She's taller than your wife.
Not bad.
Yeah. She seems like a midgy Magoo to me.
I think it's just because she's so little.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna rate this episode?
Well, so as I was reviewing all this stuff, I felt like I've been throwing around my fours too often. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more, because we like the show. That's the point. That's why we want to do the damn podcast, because we like all these episodes, generally speaking, anyway. So even though I like this episode a lot, I give it a 3 out of 4 business school books.
I really like this episode. It's one of my favorite. It's one of those, since it is, you don't have to know a ton about the characters to enjoy it. So it's one of those episodes that'd be like, look, you should really watch this episode.
Right.
See if you like the show. So I'll give it 4.5 out of 5 jealous Pamaras.
All right. I like it.
So we did get some listener email. Is that something you want to...
Yeah, I could. You want to read it real quick?
Yeah, we could read it or just talk about it. So we got an email from a dude named Alex, who's actually from Scranton, PA, which is cool. So, and he had some insight into what it's like living in that area.
Yep. So he says, quote, I noticed that one of you thought it was strange that Michael was a Pirate fan. Yep. Someone who works in Electric City, Scranton, and lives in Wilkes-Barre,
Wilkes-Barre, I think.
Wilkes-Barre, about 20 minutes away, not from Pennsylvania. I can confidently say that there is nothing strange at all about that. Scranton doesn't necessarily identify strongly with Philadelphia, perhaps because New York is almost as close. The minor league baseball team in Scranton is a Yankees affiliate, and the very popular minor league hockey team is a Penguins affiliate. I would say that Scranton area is pretty evenly divided between fans of Philadelphia, New York, and Pittsburgh teams. Most people are probably Phillies or Yankees fans, but Mets and Pirates fans are not uncommon. So Michael could definitely be a Buccos fan and not stand out at all. Again, keep up the good work. Great podcast. Thanks, Alex. Right. So, Alex, thanks for sending that in.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This reminds me, if you want to get a little feel for Scranton a little bit, and if you have Hulu, there's a Hulu original called Behind the Mask, and it's about mascots. And one of the mascots they follow for the season is the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguin.
Okay.
It's a really good show. Highly recommend it. But you also can because they talk about this in The Office. So it's kind of a cool tie-in.
I mean, that's great. I think the makers of The Office really did a good job trying to figure out the Scrantonness. It's such a small town that I really doubt most people, even people who are privy with Pennsylvania as a state, were aware of Scranton in this way. And I think they did a lot. I think a lot of the mom and pop places they list, like Poor Richards and Cooper's and all that stuff, I think are real places in Scranton.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So I think they did their research. Steamtown Mall's a real place. My mom's been there. I think it might be smaller than the show depicts, but maybe I'm wrong. So they did their homework, and Alex, thanks for sending in that email to confirm that Michael can like the Pirates if he wants to.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously he can like it if he wants to.
Me
not knowing the area, it just seemed odd.
Yeah, no, it's true. And this area is real complicated. I mean, I'm sure there are other places in the country, but this whole New England, New York, New Jersey area, we've got a lot of teams that do this thing where they kind of encroach on other people's areas. So so I can see how that would add more confusion to some of the Eastern Philadelphia or Pennsylvania rather team-based fandom stuff.
Yep. So thanks for coming out to the podcast. Again, you can find us at brokenjars.xyz. We'll be on YouTube. brokenjarsbroadcasting@gmail.com. The information for the episodes and the contest and everything else, if you want to do a supercut for our intro, will all be in the show notes. So, hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye.